Lost access to our fucking Facebook account. Okay. Do this one more time, guys. All right. And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Sunday. Uh, Pat Bukta here with Austin, Texas Musicians, and we got Sarah Hall with Austin, Texas Musicians, and Sadie and Zeke with AFM 433. And we are here today because, of course, there's a lot of buzz around South by and fair payment for musicians. And so we are, working to sort of tackle this subject and see what we can do about it. As we all know now, the City of Austin Parks Board met a couple of months ago to pass a recommendation to council to potentially cancel public land use contracts with South by Southwest until they start paying musicians fairly. That did not go to vote at that time, but it will go to vote tomorrow evening at City Hall. And so our friends with AFM 433 and the United Musicians and Allied Workers are organizing a rally. And we are also supporting by helping musicians understand the facts, the background, and how they can show up, sign up, and speak up. So without any further ado, I think I'd like to pitch over to Sarah Hall, who is our Advocacy and Education Director. If you guys don't know Sarah yet, she's a crucial part of the ATXM staff, and we're so grateful to have her. Sarah?
So today we just kind of wanted to go over how to craft a testimony and best practices for when you go up in front of the board and talk to them, state your case. And we have a PowerPoint here.
Great. Let's look at that.
So overall, you're going to have 3 minutes to speak. If there's too many people, they may shorten that to 2. But you will probably have 3 minutes to speak.
Hang on. Good grief. Let me get this situated, Sarah. I'm sorry. Here we go. So many buttons to push. Let's do that one more time. There we go.
Okay. So basic outline of your testimony, you're going to want to have an introduction, say hello to the board, state your name and what you do, and say you're in support of what's going to be item 6 on the agenda and of the Fair Pay at South by Southwest efforts. You can also urge the board to vote in support of the recommendation. And then the most important part, the fluff of it, is going to be giving a personal anecdote is usually the best thing to really get your point across and get the board to understand where you're coming from. So have you ever had an experience playing for South by that you should have been compensated much better for? How do you know that South by Southwest isn't paying enough? Do you play, regular gigs that are 3 times the amount of pay that are just in a random club on 6th Street? What would higher pay for gigs change for your life and your work? Next. Can I do that? Okay.
Yep.
When you're crafting testimony, you're going to want to avoid being overly negative. Focus on what good and how much change this recommendation could do for you and the community. And avoid speaking on things you can't elaborate on or aren't an expert on. So if you're not a lawyer, don't talk about the law. It just looks bad if you get asked questions later and can't really expand. And you're going to want to make sure to include personal anecdotes. Again, the board wants to know why this recommendation matters to us as their constituents. Will this have an impact on you and your work? Tell your story. What district you live in and who your council member is, if you're an Austin resident. These board members were each picked by one of the city council members and are tasked to listen to their constituents. So stating that is always a really good personal touch to reel in one of the board members. And make your ask. What do you want the board to do? Vote in favor of this recommendation and encourage their council member to listen to it once it hits city council. And some good pointers, write it out. It's generally best to write out your testimony beforehand, even if it's just an outline of points. If you feel like you can speak off the cuff better than if you're reading a script. And then time yourself. I promise you, 3 minutes feels a lot shorter than it sounds. Be nice to the board, acknowledge them, make eye contact, smile. They're taking up our cause. I know it's an emotional topic, but don't be too negative towards them. Our issue is with South by. Stay focused, keep on the topic of what this recommendation could mean to you, instead of general grievances with South by, even though I know we all have a lot. And no profanity. I don't think you guys would have any issues with that, though. And then we have some talking points. They are pasted under the Facebook event. We have UMA provided a really good quick fact sheet about South by and about their revenue and about what they've been paying musicians, and it's really good resources if you want to throw in some little details. And then we have a broad coalition statement that's a lot more in-depth and gives you a much deeper look into the background if you want to do some extra reading.
Thank you, Sarah. And it looks like we started late in the Facebook stream, so I'd like to just kind of loop back and kind of go over some of this again, especially since our friends from UMA may be coming in a couple of minutes. So let's just loop back for a second. Greetings, everyone. Happy Sunday. As we know, South by Southwest fair payment is a big issue for musicians right now. And a little background, we do know that a couple of months ago, the City of Austin Parks Board passed or rather introduced a recommendation to recommend to City Council that public land use contracts not be renewed with South by Southwest until they start paying musicians fairly. So our friends with AFM 433 and with United Musicians and Allied Workers, yeah, there they are, Sadie and Z, say hi. They're organizing a bit of a rally tomorrow to get musicians to show up, and we are helping to simply make sure that you guys are armed with the facts that you guys can go in, show up, speak up, and be heard. And that is what we do here at Austin, Texas Musicians. We want to empower you guys to advocate for yourselves. You know, we can't tell you how to think or what to do, but we can arm you with facts and get you there. So once again, I would like to introduce our Advocacy and Education Director, Sarah Hall, who is amazing. A lot of you guys in the community already know Sarah, but if you don't, she's an invaluable asset to our work here at Austin, Texas Musicians. Then I also want to introduce Sadie and Zeke. You guys might know them from Batty Jr., which is a wonderful local band. But here's Sadie. Zeke, I didn't make you a banner, but I'm going to make you one right now so you feel special because I love you.
Wow, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, man. And, here you go.
Wow, look at that. Wow.
You're official.
Why is his font bigger than mine?
What's that?
Why is his font bigger than mine?
Oh, that's right.
Kidding.
Let's see. Oh, I guess I spelled yours out. So anyway, I'd like to loop back since we're kind of live on Facebook now. And Sarah, if I can defer to you one more second, I'd like to pull back up your slides, and let's really take a minute and go over those, make sure everybody's armed with a strategy for when they do show up tomorrow and speak at City Hall.
Okay. So crafting a testimony, we're going to be testifying in front of the Parks and Rec Board. Yes. So when you go up to speak, it'll be on item 6 is what this is on the agenda tomorrow night. And you will have probably 3 minutes to speak. If there's too many people, they may shorten it to 2, but it will probably be 3 minutes. And so in that 3 minutes, you're going to need 3 main points: your introduction, where you say hello to the board, state your name and what you do, if you're a local musician, what band you're part of, stuff like that, how long you've been in Austin. And then say that you're in support of item 6 and of the fair pay at South by Southwest efforts. You can also urge the board to vote in support of the recommendation. And then the biggest part of it is going to be giving a personal anecdote. This is going to give the board a really good view of, what your experience is with the topic of fair pay at South by Southwest. So, like, have you had an experience playing for South by that you should have been compensated better for? How do you know that South by isn't paying enough? Do you have a regular gig that you play that's like 3 times the pay for much little work, or something like that? What would higher pay for gigs change for your life and your work? How would this recommendation have an impact on you? And then to generally avoid, while testifying, avoid being overly negative, let's focus on what good this recommendation could do and really stress that to the board. And avoid speaking on things you can't elaborate on or aren't an expert on. So just like, don't speak on law if you're not a lawyer, because just if you're asked questions later on, it can look kind of bad if you can't elaborate. And then definitely include personal anecdotes. The board wants to know why this recommendation matters to us as constituents. Will this have an impact on you and your work? What district you live in and who your council member is if you're an Austin resident. These board members were each picked by one of the city council members and are tasked to listen to their constituents. So if you add that in, it adds a nice little personal touch and really reels in one of the board members specifically. And then you want to make your ask. What do you want the board to do? Of course, vote in favor of this recommendation and encourage their council member to listen to it once it hits city council. And then some general tips. Write it out. It's generally best to write out your testimony, even if it's just an outline, if you think you can speak off the cuff better. And then try timing yourself. 3 minutes, I promise, feels a lot shorter than it sounds usually. Be nice to the board, acknowledge them and that they're taking the time to take up our cause. I know it's a super emotional topic, but our issue is with South by, not the board. Stay focused, keep on the topic of this recommendation and what it could mean to you, instead of general grievances with South by, even though I know we have a lot. And no profanity, but I don't think we'll have an issue with anyone with that. And that's it for testimony.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. And I think now we'd like to get a little background on how we got here. I want to reiterate really quickly here that Austin, Texas musicians, our position in this is merely to arm you guys with some facts and get you where you need to be to advocate for yourselves. I want to correct an error in saying that, we are not the agent to be negotiating with South by. There's some other great partners we have here in the room who have been doing this work for a while and are amazing at it. This all started quite a few months ago with an amazing organization out of New York City called the United Musicians and Allied Workers. They've been putting the heat on South by. They've been amazing at getting a lot of media coverage and getting a petition out so that musicians can sign this and offer support. So without any further ado, I do want to introduce Joey DiFrancesco. He is the founder of United Musicians and Allied Workers. Joey, if you will, hello.
Hi, all. Thanks so much for doing this. Really exciting for us with UMA to have built this coalition out, which is how we're going to win this thing, and getting everyone out to testify today. I'm sending reminder text to all the, Austin area musicians that have signed our petition right now as we're on this. And here to support this however we can.
Awesome. Thank you, Joey. If you will, can you kind of give us a little background and maybe let us know, how we got here and even maybe lay some facts down on us if you got some talking points about, what South by is currently paying, how we want to change that, if you will.
Yeah, sure. So, I think this effort started with just probably everyone who is watching this, which is a massive musicians, the thousands of musicians who have played South by Southwest of the year and have been frustrated with it and have expressed frustration amongst ourselves as musicians and online. I think where Yuma stepped in February was not to, kick off the anger, which was already there, but to get people signed on, to make this a collective effort and start building this coalition. So it was in February, our organization started thinking about what demands we'd want to make of South by Southwest, knowing that this had been something that had been angering. And, because of that anger, uniting musicians in Austin, but also over the country and really all over the world. It's one of the few workplaces where so many musicians are in the same place, signing the same contract. So we put together our demands, which include raising the payment, right? The number we set on was $750, to get rid of the application fees, to compensate international artists the same, right? It gets a little complicated because how the visas work, but even with the current visa system, they could compensate international artists for things like travel and food and hotels. Currently, international artists don't get any money, right? And then we're also asking that they give bands a wristband in addition to payment. So we launched this in late February, early March, have nearly 3,000 musicians publicly signed on, right? Which is, of course, a big deal because these are visible to South by, visible to other festivals, that this mass of musicians has all kind of come together and are feeling brave enough as a collective to make these demands. So I'll throw that in the chat if you haven't seen those demands yet. But there you can sign on to add your name there as well, your band name, your artist name. We had some rallies over this past South by, including a protest show at Hole in the Wall. That was a very difficult thing to get together because South by Southwest has so much power. As I'm sure everyone knows in the state of Austin, but we did get our show together. Hole in the Wall had a protest at the convention center. This generated all of this media attention. And then partnering with a lot of local organizations like Austin Texas Musicians, like AFM, like Texas Working Families Party, Austin Working Families Party, the Alphabet Workers Union, so many groups of artists and other workers and labor movement coming together to support this, to where we've got it to this point now where, Parks and Rec is voting on this and we can put some real political power behind this. So in terms of talking points, I think, I'm not sure, did everyone have access to that fact sheet, or should I share that again?
Yeah, or actually, Joey, if you want to present it, if you see your little present button down there, you can probably pull that up if you like.
I can share my screen.
Yeah,
okay,
totally.
Let's see. The 10,000 tabs I have open. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, man.
Whoa, okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, people can kind of peruse this on their own, but these are the kind of key facts that we've seen really resonate with people. As Sarah was saying, I think those personal experience points, bringing that up, that is really what connects people, what's going to make it meaningful, to local Austin city government. So, I would definitely second the point Sarah was making about that being the most important thing. But I guess for some other just background to have in your head, or if you want to point it out to connect with your own experience, the key thing that we always talk about that's really shocking to people is that these pay rates have not changed in at least a decade. We can find online going back, I think 12 years that the pay rates have been the same. Maybe some other folks here have experienced in South by into the 90s who could share what the pay rates were then, but at least 12 years they've had the same rate of the wristband, or $250 or $100 for solo artists, right? It's unacceptable with inflation, just the increasing cost of touring, right? It's insane that those rates have stayed the same. Meanwhile, over the same period, while they've kept the pay rates the same, it's not like they just forgot about the money. They've actually increased the application fee. So almost 40% over that same time period, the application fee has gone up from $40 to $55. So if they have over 5,000 artists applying to this is their own math, but they do publicly say how many artists apply to South by, which is 5,001 last year, which is a lower year. It's probably actually higher this past year now that we're recovering more from COVID. They're making nearly $300,000 just in artist application fees. Okay. And by their own numbers, only 128 artists even took the payment. Everyone else took the wristband because the payment's so low, it wasn't worth it for most artists. So by their own numbers, at most, they were paying around 30 grand out to artists total while taking almost 300 grand. So they're making money off of application fees, right? This is very much a pay to play thing. It's really the only kind of like international festival of this status that is kind of pay to play. Going back, do they have money to pay us? Of course they do, right? By their own numbers, which they brag about to Austin city government so that they can keep getting these tax breaks and demonstrate how much they bring to the city. South by reported $280 million economic impact last year. And again, this was still a recovering year for 2023. They haven't released the numbers yet, almost certainly higher than it was in 2022. But in 2019, for instance, pre-pandemic, it was almost $360 million. So they have the money, right? To underscore that they have the money, the festival is now 50% owned by a company called Penske Media. It's not all locally owned anymore, right? This biggest single stake is this big multinational conglomerate called Penske Media that also owns Rolling Stone, Billboard, Variety. They own like most music publications. Penske Media is owned by the billionaire son of Roger Penske, who owns like the Penske trucks you see everywhere and racing teams and all this other shit. So, they're not only billionaires, they're big right-wing donors. They're big supporters of President Trump. You can see the Penskes meeting with Trump, getting awards, right? So these are folks who have the money to pay us, okay? A little more dirt on Jay Penske, right? They have close ties with the Saudis, with President Trump, etc. The last point I also added in that I think is striking is that South by Southwest, I know when I was there in March, I saw on the cabs and displays everywhere advertising for South by Southwest Sydney. So they're expanding into an Australian edition of this festival. You'd think, hey, they have enough money to open up in Australia. They probably have enough money to pay artists, right? Well, no, actually, the South by Southwest Sydney is not paying artists anything. They've actually lowered rate. They're not even offering the $250. Okay, so I think the key takeaways here are that this festival makes a lot of money. The Penskes have a lot of money. The festival is actually expanding, right? They're not hurting, especially the Penske money. They're expanding right now. And they have the money to be paying artists fairly. So that was my kind of quick rundown. We have this linked, I know. We also have a coalition letter that us, Austin Texas Musicians, the AFM, lots of other organizations sign on to that goes more in depth into kind of the economics and stuff of South by. Again, like Sarah said, the personal stories, how this affects your life as a musician, as someone living in Austin, that's what's gonna have the biggest impact. But I think you can also bolster with some of this background and the economics of how this festival is working.
That's excellent, Joey. Thank you so much. And just to give y'all some quick facts on, kind of the plan for tomorrow, so that you can show up and sign up and give your testimony. We are going to meet outside of City Hall at 5 p.m. It is going to be 106 degrees tomorrow, so make sure that you are prepared for that. Wear some cool clothing. We will, there's not a lot of shade out there on the City Hall steps. So, meet us out there at 5 p.m. We will have water and some snacks, and we can also help you with your testimony if you need to review a fact sheet. If you want some help with crafting what you're going to say, we can help with that. If you park in the City Hall garage, that will be compensated. This is really important to know. If any business you do at City Hall, you can get that parking validated. So make sure you park in the City Hall garage. When you go inside, when you go past the security screening, usually right inside there's a desk where you can take your little parking card and they're going to stamp it and validate that. So make sure you get that done before you leave. so that you don't have to pay to park. And certainly plan to be there by 5:45 at the very latest if you'd like to sign up to speak, because that is the, Sarah, is that the deadline to sign up by 5:45?
Usually they just like take the sheet of paper away.
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty low tech. So yeah, there's a sign up sheet, usually like on the railing leading into City Hall, right? And you can go in there and sign up. So just be there by 5:45 if you do plan to sign up to speak. And we will move inside when the meeting starts at 6 p.m. And I do want to reiterate one point that Sarah mentioned earlier. You know, there's a process to this thing. So like, you know, I think the last meeting we did see folks kind of stand up and interrupt and ask questions and things like that. We need to be respectful of Robert's Rules of Order and procedures that the Parks Board adheres to. They are elected officials. They're not getting paid to do this work. And so let's cooperate because they're the ones who introduced this recommendation. Let's work with them and support them. If this is what you guys want to see, then let's make sure we give the Parks Board the proper respect and support that they need. So that's kind of the breakdown of the plan. And I just want to, again, kind of talk about, you know, roles and responsibilities here. UMA started this thing off months ago. They've been phenomenal in, you know, getting us where we are now. They're coming armed with facts. Joey and his team have really done a lot of research, obviously, on this stuff and pushed that forward. And then we have the local union, AFM 433, who is a bargaining agent, you know, and so if it goes to that point, you know, AFM can be very instrumental here locally, whether it's with South by or a number of other opportunities for local bargaining. They're all over the country, and they're here as well. If you guys didn't know about AFM 433, make sure you check them out and sign up to be a member if that's something that appeals to you. Sadie and Zeke are members, and there's the website right there. And I'm also going to pull up, we are UMA, that's United Musicians and Allied Workers, and they are doing some amazing work, not just on this project, but on many other projects to bring, you know, fair pay and rights to musicians. So before we wrap up here today, I do want to just kind of go around the room a little bit. Sadie and Zeke, we haven't really heard from you guys yet, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about, you know, how you guys kind of interact with the union, what the union's stake in this is locally, and how people can get involved. So yeah, I do believe you're on mute. There you go.
We're happy to be here. Thank you for having us today. We are members of the Austin Federation of Musicians, which is a part of the American Federation of Musicians. And we formed a festival fair pay committee to talk about how this has been affecting us. And what we came up with is that South by Southwest has been taking more than it's giving. And so that's where we have been focusing, at least for this issue of South by Southwest. And we wrote a little bit about what that means, which is that as individual musicians, we are less powerful and less organized than South by Southwest. South by Southwest is a multi-million-dollar corporation with teams of publicists, lawyers, and marketers. But without us, South by Southwest wouldn't have grown into the festival it is today. Despite the crucial role we play in the festival, we can't exert leverage over the festival or the city as individuals. The solution is to organize, build solidarity, and consolidate our efforts and take the struggle for fair pay to the festival and the city as a united and empowered front. And as Joey was explaining earlier, like the compensation is extremely low and there's thousands of bands paying application fees. But then you get $100 if you're a solo artist or $250 for a band. but that's not even per show. That is per festival. So some artists are playing 2 or 3 gigs or more, or official showcases, but only getting the same pay, which is oftentimes lower than what we get when we're gigging here as musicians throughout the year. So in turn, that actually depresses the wages throughout over time, like, because a venue will know, like, oh, we can pay this band this much money to play during South by. We don't need to meet their guarantee later in the year because we've already paid them a small amount. Let's see. Yeah, so I think that we are here just to say that we need to have solidarity as musicians. We need to come together and have a unified voice and understand that we have more power together as a collective unit than we do as individuals. And that's why the AFM started in the first place, is that especially when they started back in like the 20s and 30s, when recorded music started happening, that got rid of the gigs for a lot of people.
Joey knows a lot about that. He wrote a whole article on it on Jacobin. You can read.
And so, like, this isn't a new issue. This is the Austin Musicians Union has been around since 1907. The American Federation started in the 1890s, and of course that means that there's been a lot of ups and downs with leadership and with America as a whole. But we're here and we have a voice and we have an opportunity to speak out against this injustice, which we've seen like has not changed. And I'm from Austin, Zeke's from Austin. We've been going to this festival for our whole lives. And I do respect the ethos of like, just get out there and play music, like get out there and have fun and make art. But eventually it becomes unfair and people start struggling. And especially if you're trying to do this as your career, like we can't survive without at least keeping up with inflation. And that's part of the reason why we're here, and we'll be there tomorrow. And we'll be there writing testimony. And I do think writing something out, at least having talking points, is really important, because we went to the last Parks and Rec meeting and we've spoke at City Hall before about other issues, and it does get a little intimidating when everybody is watching you. So having something written out is really important. And so we'll be there tomorrow, and you'll see our AFM shirts. They have armadillos on them, so you can find us that way. Do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, I will make it somewhat brief so that everyone can enjoy their hot day. But well, I just want to say, bring your own umbrella. I'm thinking about bringing some paper and pens so we can make funny signs to like stick around to each other's backs. That'd be pretty fun, right? And then if you don't feel comfortable talking, they can like read you from afar, So those two things. I think if anyone listening is interested in building power with people who also, sorry, pardon me, I'm so sorry that the dog's barking, but who are also musicians. It's a democratic institution, and so the voices, in order for it to work, we need to have the voices for input and movement. And you can just be a musician, not worry much, or you can partake a lot, and it's a ever fluctuating, moving entity. One day you could be elected president without even trying, and the next day you'll be ousted, but it's no big deal because you're really just there to play music, right? So anyway, I hope everyone really has a good day, and that's all I've really got to say.
Thank you, Zeke. And before we go to, I just want to reiterate AFM Local 433 is a great resource for musicians. They are the bargaining agent for musicians here in Austin and everywhere nationally. So great organization you guys should get involved with. But I also want to learn a little bit more about UMA and how they got started, and just a little bit more about how people can get involved. Joey, if you'd like to tell us some more.
Yeah, sure. So UMA is a national organization. We have members all over the U.S., all over the world, really, though it is honestly more focused in the U.S. So we work on a number of issues. Like kind of big campaigns right now are the South by Southwest fight, because South by Southwest, of course, brings musicians from all over the country and all over the world to Austin, and as well as streaming justice. Right, we watched a campaign called Justice at Spotify a few years ago. That's kind of our big first campaign as an organization. Currently working on national legislation to fix streaming royalties. So a lot of the same principles as our AFM folks are just talking about. We only have power as a collective, right? Us individually complaining on Twitter or whatever it is not going to push these changes through. But doing this as a collective, right? Just at Spotify, we have tens of thousands of musicians signed on to the demands for a new streaming bill. We have a national organization capable of getting, national legislation moving to fix our royalty systems. So it's going to take this kind of organization. So highly encourage everyone to join your local AFM. Also sign up with us at UMA. Get involved with Austin, Texas musicians, right? This stuff only works as a collective. We only have power when we're all united on this, whether it's on the issue of South by Southwest or inevitably the next thing. And for us, when we're thinking about this campaign too, winning this resolution tomorrow, it's huge for South by Southwest, right? This is in and of itself a giant festival affecting thousands of musicians. We're potentially looking at getting raises, getting better treatment for thousands of musicians, right? It's a big deal in and of itself, but it also creates a precedent, right? If we can use city governments all over this country to force venues, festivals, labels, whatever it is, to pay artists more fairly, that's huge, right? And this kind of resolution that's being presented tomorrow is trailblazing in that sense, and getting this passed will have a huge impact in South by, on Austin, but also really the music ecosystem, this whole country, to get this kind of precedent established. So really exciting for us, even though we're not, going to be in the city with you tomorrow.
Thank you, Joey. Yeah, and this is great. Just to reiterate, we will be at City Hall tomorrow. That's Monday, the 26th. We will meet at Austin City Hall at 5 p.m. No later than 5:45 to get you signed up to speak if you would like to offer testimony about your experiences with South by Southwest. The Parks Board of Austin will vote on a recommendation to deliver to City Council to basically request that public land use contracts not be renewed with South by until they start paying musicians fairly. So here at Austin, Texas Musicians, once again, our role in all this is to educate you, to get you empowered so that you can show up and sign up and speak up for yourself. UMA, I guess is the way to say that, and AFM 433 are fantastic organizations to push the ball forward and to hopefully create some legislation around this, and to also negotiate with South by Southwest. So going forward, we're all going to work together in our respective roles to kind of make sure that you guys have what you need to make these changes. Any final thoughts? Sarah, would you like to offer anything else?
No, just come ready to speak and have your voice heard.
Yeah. Sadie and Z. Yes.
Oh yeah, I do. Just if anyone out there is like a Trumpy, that's okay. Your work is still valuable, and you should still come and speak. And I just didn't want that to I want everybody to know You're all valuable. You're all human beings. We all appreciate you.
That's very
And
important.
also,
Thank you.
parking is in the parking garage under City Hall.
Oh yeah, under right.
And then you can get your parking validated after.
Correct. Yep.
So that if that's an issue, if money's an issue, because we know money is
Yeah.
tight, especially if you're a musician.
And don't smoke pot in the bathrooms. The security's really tight at City Hall.
Really?
Yeah, it really is.
There
Sorry.
goes. Yeah. Oh well. Joey, final thoughts?
No, I think those were the most important pro tips for this. Parking, don't smoke before you testify. I think that's it.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, and we have, it looks like one comment here. Thank you so much, all. Well, thank you.
Thank you, anonymous Facebook user.
Yes, because it's because of you guys that we're here, and we want to thank you guys for preemptively for showing up tomorrow, speaking up, and making your voice heard. Until we see you then.
And I think also it's
Yes.
the city council meetings are live streamed and recorded and archived. So if you miss it, then you can just get onto the City Hall website, which is also another reason not to smoke pot before you give your testimony.
Very true.
It will be recorded.
Yeah, that live stream is called ATXN.
ATXN,
Yeah. And they have all the meetings archived, going way back. Music Commission, everything else. So it's a great resource if you want to find out how we got here and what's happening. But once again, thank you guys for being here with us. We will see you tomorrow evening. Until then, stay cool, and thank you. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.